So I've seen this paint job a lot and I want to learn how to make it right because I've seen a lot online that don't look that good. So stick along with me so we learn how to make this and hopefully I can get it right. Let's get started. Also, thanks to Uniformation for sponsoring today's printer. We'll talk about it when we get to it. So you can call this the comic art style, comic paintwork, and it has become very popular recently with all these CT Toys figures just because they're cheaper figures to customize and therefore you don't want to risk it on a Mayfix that's $120, right? Look, bro, before we get started with the whole stress, you got to do a whole bunch of freaking research on this, okay? Because so I tried doing it the right way by looking at the comics but dude, I'm trying looking for any type of consistent patterns or designs, and I've noticed that every artist does whatever the fuck they want, dude. They don't follow like a rule. They just follow the generic lighting. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It just looks cool. That's kind of like the whole mentality when it came to this paintwork. So I decided to freestyle the concept. So I took several pictures from all angles, went into Photoshop, and then started to lay out the groundwork of what kind of blue line work I wanted to do in the figure. Thankfully, the Mesh Toys is a very edged out muscle structure, so that helps out with the definition of the line work. But I don't know, man. I was painting it like if I were doing airbrushing, which was like kind of like the highlight look, and this is what I got. And in my research of this art style, I came across POLO, which is an Instagram user that makes this type of artwork, and he's really good at it. So I sent him a message. I'm like, hey bro, what do you think about this? And he basically told me, it was ass. And he sent me his version of it, which was way better because he has more experience on this. And basically, I liked his style, and I did a mix of both. And the thing is, he helped me a lot when it came to the front part of the figure. But when it came to the back and the sides and all the other angles, it was kind of on my own at that point. So that has already been hours of research, and I haven't even decided what paint we're going to use. So for this project, we're going to be using a mix of paints. We're going to be using sky blue Kaleido, and then we're going to be using Pro Acrylics Sky Blue as well. So why not just use one? So these paints have special properties. Kaleido has a high resistance when it comes to paint rub. Pro Acrylics has a really strong pigmentation. So Kaleido is mostly for the airbrush. So the airbrush will paint it out and airbrush it really good, but we're not doing that today. We're actually going to paint it on with the paintbrush. So I need to do one layer. Okay, I don't want to do several layers. That's a bitch. And I just don't want to mess with that. So I want to do one strong paintbrush stroke and then have that stick and I have to come back to it to do layers. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a mix of these two and then I'm gonna use that. So one of the several ways I've seen people do this type of art style is with the actual like Gundam markers. So you basically just draw it on like literally how you draw on the sketch work. But I've seen that you get a bit of a more natural look with paintbrushes just because it has that natural mistaken look and inconsistent. And I feel like that's pretty evident when it comes to the artwork that it's not always the same. And Paul actually told me this. It's like, bro, if you're gonna do one side, make sure the other side is not symmetrical, it's asymmetrical, so it looks like a comic, because when you see it drawn in the pages, it's not consistent on both sides. Because why? Light is hitting different on both sides. So that was my mentality. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect at all, but it just has to look right. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. And the thing is, when it comes to the symbiote suit, it's different because yes, there's a lot more people that did the actual red and blue suit, and that's mostly black line work on top of the already colored suit. But the thing is with the symbiote suit, it's backwards. You're actually showing the highlights. You're not showing the darkest spots. Honestly, dude, I gotta give a major shout out to Polo. Go follow him just because the guy really helped me out when it came to this. Like the dimensions and the paintwork. And I feel like I think I understand this. This is easier to understand once you're actually doing it. And is that it just, where the highest points are gonna be? Just within the line work, make it look dynamic. Don't make it look exactly like the same. Like here in the ab section, there's some divots and lines that don't really make a whole lot of sense, but they just look cool. So at the end of the day, I think that's the goal, making it look cool, not making it look consistent. Because if you think about it, it's a dude like an alien suit, it doesn't have to make sense, but within the artwork, it just, as long as you're doing like wacky designs for like the legs, the abs and all that, and it's not all the same, it's gonna end up looking cool. So that's what I learned doing this. Or if you don't want to freestyle it, you can look up one of these like 1C suits and just copy the designs that they have and just go a little bit beyond that, Okay, so this is the next day, and you can tell on some areas it's a little bit thin, on some areas it's a little bit splotchy. And then later with black, since the base body is black, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a more definition into the lines, right? For example, like all these circular edges, those are gonna be gone. They're gonna be spiky, they're gonna be a little bit more pointy. And then I tried it here, a little bit of like line work. And just in general, dude, this thing is fucking tedious, honestly. So let's go ahead and keep going. And let's see how much we can paint this, bro. Let's keep going. I already had a custom McFarlane look head sculpt, but I've been working on these Peter heads available on my Patreon, link in bio. But I want to do something a little bit different, you know, and I wanted to do a symbiote one. A big inspiration was the Spider-Man 3 Venom, like Topher Grace phase, so I used a lot of references of that when it came to the actual tendrils, you know, but just some extra DLC for the video, you know, and that also gives me an excuse to do a cell shaded face and let me practice for maybe a future Jotaro, you know, but we'll see. Hey, if you like the video enough, maybe. Also want to do a big old base for this figure, so let me show you how I did that. So today's printer is a Uniformation GK3 Ultra. As you know, we gotta be honest with it, and they particularly told me, like, you know what, this is a big old printer. Go ahead and print something that's humongous. I found this Lister statue by Epic Prop, and the sewer base seemed pretty cool for a symbiote Spider-Man. It reminds me of this scene. Humongous. I'll show some images here on screen. It looks pretty sick. I just had to go into ZBrush and cover up the holes of the actual peg holes for the actual lizard. All right, let's get printing. So when I first set it up, it asked me to level it, even though I already came pre-leveled. And then this top piece comes off. Like, it's loose, but once you like clamp it down, it's hard. So I don't know. I thought it was like a separate piece or something you can modify, but no, it just comes off. So the way they do leveling is that they give you these 5 pieces of papers. It's not necessarily like level it yourself, it's make sure it's leveled, because it says here in the instructions, within travel there might be a possibility of getting unleveled, so just test it out. So we're gonna do just that. So this printer comes with the heating system, it comes with the feeding system, and it comes with the modular air filtration system, which is this black thing that goes in the back of the machine. And then here we have the first batch of prints, and there are some layer lines. That usually comes down to the supports not being strong enough. And for this one, I didn't really go in depth with the support. I just did default supports. So that's mostly on me more than the printer, because as you can see, some of the pieces actually did print very well, and they didn't have layer lines. It's just mostly these parts right here are really thin and they were hollow that were causing the layer lines. The feeding system seems to be feeding it so it's not running out, because I think it has like 1,000 milligrams on here, and then it has 1,200 milligrams on the feeding system. So yeah, dude, seems like it worked out pretty well. Usually I don't like feeding systems, but in this one it doesn't really bother me that much because it has a well automated system in which it helps you clean it out as well. So that helps in the changing out the resins process. Another feature it has, so you can lay it on its side and then it can drip all the excess material. I don't like is that I think when you close it, it actually like brushes right next to it. So I wouldn't feel too safe closing it down, so I'll be careful with that. Just because it's barely hitting the edge, you can tell like right on the edge of the cover. So I went back and redid a couple other pieces as well, just because I kept on having issues with the thinness of the wall was causing it to make layer lines. So it was more of a software issue on my side, just because I'm not familiarized with printing such big things. But once I had the settings down, I feel like I had pretty good looking prints. So look, I went ahead and redid it. So I hollowed out the inside, and then instead of making it like fully hollow so I can remove the support from the inside, I just hollowed out with almost like a spherical cylinder, and I still left the connection points so they should still connect. But now, go ahead and print the final pieces so we can then assemble it and paint it and prime it. So this is what we got so far. Hopefully you can see. It's a bunch of interconnected pieces, but I think I might have to reprint a couple, like this tube. Missing one more piece. So here are the reprinter parts, and as you can see, the detail is there, man. I just gotta get rid of some supports, but in general I'm happy with this thicker pieces. It might be a little bit more resin, but it's worth the exchange because the detail is definitely there, man. But yeah, man, right now I just gotta sand all this down. Not much sanding because it seems pretty good, but I just gotta prep it for painting. So let's get ready for that. So I was thinking maybe going for like a regular look, like it does like in the render, but I'm like, it wouldn't really make sense to make a cell shaded like comic character and then make a realistic diorama. So I think what I'm gonna do is let's just do cell shaded, right? Let's try. I got no idea how to do it, so we'll see right now. We'll see. So I was looking at some references for the actual like comic style, and that means, bro, I would have to draw in every single little nook and cranny. As with any big old resin print, you gotta sand it. I believe I started at 400, then 600, 800, and then it's basically just getting rid of the supports and the little tiny bit of layer lines it might be here and there, you know, just to get it ready for priming. After a bunch of sanding, I went ahead and did a black primer on the metal pieces just because I know I'm gonna be painting them some sort of metallic color. I'll be honest, bro, I don't know what I was doing. I mean, like most of the things I do, I was just winging it, and I thought, okay, well, you know, I gotta cover all this of color and then come back later and do line work. So I just decided to dry brush it like a regularly would do. But in this situation, I just went for more exaggerated, like brighter colors. When I came to the pipe, I did a mix of gold and dark red. And then when it came to the actual sewer water, for whatever reason, it's always painted green. So I decided to paint it green. And you know, yeah, simple enough. I was just going based off the comics, man, you know. Now, this is the interesting part because we're trying to emulate the comic look, right? With all the lines and literally everything that's like a line needs to be drawn in. So that's basically what I did. A big reference for me in this situation, it wasn't necessarily like the comics. It was mostly like Borderlands. You know, Borderlands has a cell shading for everything. So I cell shaded everything, bro. You know, does it look good? I don't know. You can let me know. And then here I'm just adding a little bit more of highlights, that blue highlights. You want to be a little bit more hard on the paint when it comes to this one because that's the way it's drawn sometimes, you know. There's not really that smooth transition. It's like, you know, it's bright paint on top of dark colors, you know. And I did a little bit of squiggly on the sides of the tubing just like they do in comics, you know, just to make it look like it's supposed to be metallic and, you know, it has dimension to it. Okay, I think we're at the point where we're adding the last bit of details. Can't see any like big noticeable paint rub. I'll just sand down some areas that I think might be paint rub, but I'm not too sure. Like here, it's barely noticeable, but I'll just basically give it a last prep, do the head, and then do the spider logo, and I think we should be good to go. So I feel like one important part that really sells this process is the little line work, bro. The little line work is what gives you depth, you know, and differentiates it from the big old splotches that you may have at the beginning. So it's just going back and redoing the line work that really make it special, you know, really make it pop. So the original head is a little bit stinky poo poo for my taste, so we're using this McFarlane design, and this is actually a return from somebody that didn't like it from my Etsy. So, you know, thanks for the head. If you want one, link in bio in my Etsy. So the typical look would be the halo look in the face, like it shown here. But actually, POLO sent me a design that I like pretty much. It's a little bit simpler, but it sells the shading effect. And after a couple messed up paintbrushes and hours of being hunched over and another couple hours of research, here is the end result. Hope you like it.
All my fellas. All my fellas. All my fellas. Let's go. Let's go.
So that has been the whole video. Let me know if you like it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're gonna make this yourself at home. And hey, recommend any other characters. I was maybe thinking of Wolverine, maybe a Hulk, you know. bigger characters, maybe a Venom. You know, we'll see if there's enough likes. I know you want a Jotaro, but he's not out yet on Amazon. As soon as he's out, I'll get it and do the cell shading. I already have a couple ideas for that one. Look, if you made it this far, make sure to comment a salute emoji just so I know you're watching. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Greatly appreciated. As you know, the files for the head sculpts are going to be available in my Patreon, so link in bio. And thanks again to Uniformation for the printer. But yeah, dude, that's been basically the whole video. Thanks for watching. Until next one. Thank you. Bye.